Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Easter Pod. I am your host, Corey Easterday, and on this episode, we are chatting with a very fun, very, very good, and very talented musical act all the way from Portland, Oregon. It's Fox and Bones. I was just listening back to some of this interview with Fox and Bones before recording this intro, and I have to say, it was a super fun conversation in the moment and to listen back to. It's a really good time. I know you're going to have a good time listening to this. And Sarah and Scott, who make up the duo Fox and Bones, are newer friends, but they're the kind of people for me that once I connected with them, you meet people like that, you connect, and it just felt like we've been friends for a long time. They're very easy to talk to and hang out with. And as you'll hear during our conversation, very knowledgeable about all things music and music industry related. I've been doing a lot more of these musician interviews recently as opportunities come up. And I feel like I'm unpacking a new thing about music, learning something new, and about doing it as a career or the art of it, all this stuff. Every episode I do, I feel like I'm learning something new about it that I'd never fully considered before. And I won't spoil too much of it, but this conversation really stood out to me as a chance to learn from these two talented people who've been working at and fine-tuning their craft for a long time. And as a result, they've got great music and a lot of great insight and stories to share. So, I did what I promised myself that I wouldn't do anymore before recording these intros. And I ordered a latte to drink in the coffee shop that's attached to the studio. I typically try to drink tea or water, something with a calming effect because, I'm already, for those that know me, I'm already a bit of a jittery, awkward type, if you will, as it is. So caffeine tends to just hype that up a little more. So all that to say, I'm just as hyped up as I can be right now, thinking about this conversation and with the caffeine that's coursing through my veins. But it's giving me the energy on a Wednesday afternoon to say how much that I appreciate everyone out there in podcast world listening to and supporting the show. If it's your first time tuning in or you've missed some episodes, the goal of this pod, the Easter pod, as I cover with Fox and Bones, not a show about Easter, as you may guess at the title. It's simply to interview rad humans, and we've had quite a roster of rad humans on this show over 4 years of doing it. And speaking of rad humans, be sure to check out our last episode with 1402. 1402 is another band that was on tour in Charlotte earlier this year, and they are friends from the great home state for me of Ohio, the heart of it all. It was also a super fun conversation, very much well worth a listen if you're into anything music related. Another great, talented band. Look at me. I get all these great talented bands coming through the podcast. What a honor it is. For real though, it is. I love it. And I love those dudes. I love 1402, and it was an honor to speak with them. So be sure to check that episode out. And of course, be sure to follow the show on social media at the Easter Pod and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice so that you never miss an episode. Of doing things like leaving a rating and a review, sharing with friends, all the things to help promote the show, share it with others. It all really helps. So thank you for doing that. Shout out to Easterday Creative at Easterday Creative on social media, easterdaycreative.com, for joining forces with the Easter Pod to bring you stories of rad humans who inspire you to engage the world with creativity and hope. Easterday Creative is my wife Megan and I, and just this year brought the podcast under that umbrella. So really excited for the opportunities that has opened up. And special thanks to my friends Speak Seldom for creating the music for this episode. We get our own original music on the show too. How awesome is that? And to my guy, JD Laird, and his company Token for helping to produce this episode. They did a lot of our new design work. Token's been phenomenal to work with. So I would definitely recommend checking out their work by visiting tokencreative.co. And of course, most importantly, arguably, check out Fox and Bones on all social platforms at Fox and Bones with the and spelled out. Check out their website, foxandbones.com, in the show notes for upcoming show schedule, music, merch, all that good stuff to help support them and stay in touch with their work. Mailing list. I signed up for their mailing list when they were here in Charlotte. It's a great mailing list. And you can take that coming from a guy that runs mailing lists as part of my job. So check that out. Their website, that's in the show notes. They tour a lot, so there's a good chance they'll be coming to your area soon, wherever you're listening to this. And listen to Fox and Bones wherever you listen to music. Spotify, Apple Music, all the things, YouTube. Most importantly, be sure to check out their new album, Long Time Honey. I'm not kidding, my friends. It is really, really, really good. It gets 3 reallys. On a scale of 1 to 3 really, really reallys for how good it is, it gets 3. I just made that scale up. Not something I've used on the show before. Probably won't use it again. But depending on when you're listening to this, there's a link to pre-order it in the show notes. Link to buy and listen if you're listening to this after it's already come out this month. All the ways to support their work is in the show notes, so check that out. Pre-order the album, buy their music, share it on social media, all that stuff. We actually cover that a good bit in the conversation about the business of music, so make sure to support them as artists. And one last ringing endorsement. Megan and I bought their Long Time Honey vinyl album when they were in town, when we were around the time we recorded this episode, when they were on tour through here this year. And this album has quickly become one of my favorites. I'm not just saying that because I've had them on the show and they're friends, whatever. It is objectively, in my opinion, a great album. So check that album out, Long Time Honey. And without further ado, my conversation with Fox and Bones. Well, we are coming off, if I may say so, one incredible show at the Evening Muse here in Charlotte, North Carolina last night. And it was such a treat to be able to see some friends all the way from Portland, Oregon. If you can believe I have friends that far across the country. I'm kidding. But they're performing on their Long Time Honey tour and pumping the new record and all the incredible singles and songs that are on it that I've gotten to enjoy so far with the rest of their fans. So it's also a treat to just have them in the studio with me today as guests on the show. They are an amazing folk rock duo that one could argue defies only one genre. Mm-hmm. And they have become incredible friends as well. They're incredible people. Sarah and Scott, a.k.a. Fox and Bones, welcome to the Easter Pod. How are y'all doing today?
Very happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Shall we call this Easter Sunday on this Sunday morning?
Oh, snap. We are a week from Easter.
It's not Easter Sunday, but this is my Easter Sunday.
Hanging out at the Easter Pod.
With you
Corey
Easterday.
Yeah.
He is risen.
I love how sacrilegious that is. That's perfect. Let me just tell you, I've gotten so much mileage over time out of the Easterday last name. It's been perfect.
Yeah, it's really good. It's good branding. You know, your parents really branded you well.
Yeah, except I do worry that when people see the title of the podcast, they're just kind of like, a podcast all about Easter.
Every day is Easter Day. That should be your slogan.
This is your heyday. This is your time right now.
Spring has sprung.
It's true. Yeah, I also get a lot of mileage out of, because we are a week from Easter. And one time, because I'm a goober, I walked around to people and was like, "Happy Easter Day," like on Easter. And I had one friend.
Good bit.
Yeah, it's clever. Low hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. And I had one friend go, "Wow, that's so pretentious that you would like. It's not about you today."
You're like, well, every other day is Easter Day. Every day is Easter Day.
You get the other 365.
Jesus can have the one, and then Corey gets the rest.
Yeah, that's it's a good breakdown.
It's a good trade.
But yeah, it's not about Easter Day as much as we love Easter here on the Easter Pod. It's about Fox and Bones. And this has been 10, 11 months in the making to have you all in the studio recording.
It has. It's so fun when these things come to fruition after wanting to do them for so long. Because we met you last year when we were here in Charlotte playing with the Talbot brothers, and they went on your pod, and then we were like, we want to go on the pod too.
Got some FOMO, some pod FOMO.
A little pod FOMO.
That's incredible. Yeah, we met then, and you guys played a great show then, and it was a discovery show for me. I've gotten into this thing with music more lately. I'm not sure if a lot of people, like if everyone does this, but instead of listening to a band ahead of time for a show, sometimes I just like to catch it live and see, like, so you guys were an experience like that for my wife Megan and I, going there to see the Talbot brothers while they were on tour, and then seeing you guys opening and being like, all right, new favorite band here tonight, Fox and Bones.
I think it's fun to see shows in discovery mode in a way, because the music can hit you in a way that you're not prepared for. Like if you kind of do the homework before the show and listen to the bands, and then you feel the difference between the live recordings and the stage performance and the albums. But if you kind of go and get hit with it new, it's a whole new experience, and then you can dig in back, through the tracks on the road as well.
Yeah, I think I still maintain that, like, seeing a band live is like the best way to discover a band, because if a band's good live, then they're probably going to have good recorded music. But I just think that, like, you really get a sense for a band's stage performance and their personality when you get to see them on stage. And I know that that's something that Scott and I have very much curated, is like our stage performance and how we show up is such a huge part of the Fox and Bones brand, and it's sometimes hard to hear that in the recorded music. We're very proud of the music we've put out, and we think it represents us well, but all the silly banter that happens between songs is half the show for us. And so we like when people come out and take a chance on seeing us live.
Do you feel like because you've been on this tour for a couple weeks now, a few weeks, do you feel like that's happening in terms of like people discovering you live for the first time? Is that happening a fair bit? Because I know some shows you're headlining, some shows you're opening. Like, what's been we were talking about it a little bit before, but what do you feel like the balance has been between people that are going to a Fox and Bones show versus people that are like, oh my God, Fox and Bones, they're incredible?
It's been a little bit of both.
Yeah, it feels half and half. Like, it's been a lot of fun to go back to cities that we've been to before to see familiar faces. And it makes us feel a little bit, because we're pretty far from home, or as far away from home as we'll get on this whole tour. And so it's good to see a familiar face and have it feel like, it's like, oh, this feels like this feels welcoming, and it feels reassuring, and so that definitely helps when you're out on the road to see those faces.
Yeah, and what's always a really fun thing is when we like see people who we maybe only met once, and we're kind of, or even better is sometimes when people show up and they're like, they've never seen us before, they just heard us online or something, or discovered us in another way, and we're being introduced to them for the first time. And then also, getting to perform with other bands. Last night we played with a band called Driftwood, and we got to play for their audience. And so I think we made a few new fans out of that. And so it's been a nice, like you said, because we're doing some opening and some headlining. And so those opening shows are really great ways to just like go in with a cold audience and be like, hello, you've never heard us before, but here we are.
I think too about the discovery music aspect. A lot of times when we're playing, or I'll do this when we're playing with bands, I won't listen to the music before, so I don't get like cold feet before listen to and then fanboy over them, and then go in and play the show and be all nervous. And so I won't listen till after we play the show for doing like opening acts for certain bands, and then it's kind of a fun way to explore, to meet them as people, and then hear their music, and then kind of grow with it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys have been at this for 8 years now?
Mm-hmm.
This iteration?
As this iteration, yeah.
How extensive is this tour compared to anything else you've done before? Or is it like comparable?
We used to do this like full country tour every year up until the pandemic. And it was much more extensive, but we would stay in certain places longer. So this is kind of like a condensed version of the same tour we used to do. Like we used to do it in, like I said, 3 months. Now it's 6 weeks. So we literally cut it in half, which means that on this tour, there's been a lot more driving, a lot more staying in a new place every night. Whereas before it was like everywhere that we've always planned our tours in the past when we were booking them ourselves around where we knew people that we could stay with. Beds. We planned our tours around beds. And so that kind of informs now some of these places that we keep going back to. Is like we went there a bunch because we had a family or friend there who would put us up, and if we could stay for 2 or 3 or 4 sometimes a week, and do laundry and be in the same bed multiple nights. For example, like I have family in Austin, and so we'll stay in Austin, then we'll drive to San Antonio and come back to Austin. Then we'll drive to Dallas and come back to Austin. We have these like home bases that we do. But this tour has been different. It's been very much a route where we go from one place to the next, and we're usually only in a place for one night. It's a little bit more exhausting, but it also feels nice to be kind of, having a shorter tour and getting home sooner.
Now, we also used to not live anywhere. Like we didn't have a house or anywhere. We didn't have beds. We didn't used to have beds.
Yeah.
So we'd book these 3-month tours around the U.S. and we'd get home and then we'd go immediately to another month or two in Europe. And so we'd have to book shows so that we'd have places to sleep. Yeah. Or else we'd be back crashing on friends' couches in Portland. And
Same with my parents.
Yeah. So there was a time when we were first, because we kind of worked into that type of touring. But once we were on the road and out of our houses and not paying rent anywhere, then it just kind of behooved us to continue on the road and just keep booking shows. We just keep booking shows, and then we'd always have a place to stay or at least be somewhere. We'd be somewhere.
A lot easier to make a profit when you don't have expenses at home.
Yeah.
And that's, something that's different now. But also we realized, after kind of being at home for a couple of years, is that it's really nice to have a home base now. Like, I think we are at the age where we kind of need that grounding. We need a place to go home to. So
a house by the river, one might say.
Yeah, one might. Sorry.
Someday.
I'm going to try to, let me look at the board here. I'm going to turn down the goober level on my mic of being too punny over here. But we'll get to house by the river. But that all makes perfect sense. You guys are road warriors for a long time. That actually adds a lot of great context to that song as well that we're going to dive into in a little bit for why it would be so nice to have your own bed and like settle down and do some of those things, because you guys have been at this for a long time. And to that point, one of the things is, we've met through the music scene, ironically, here in Charlotte a little bit, so that Show You Play with Talbot Brothers, Show You Play Last Night, and getting connected that way. This is our second or third time actually hanging out in person, which is incredible that you would come here on a Sunday morning as you're getting ready to take off to Atlanta in a few hours and spend this time. But because of that, I've always been really curious about some of the autobiographical aspects of your story. So I know Fox and Bones as it's been from 2023 to 2024 and a lot of the new songs you've written and your touring and stuff like that. So maybe we can just back up and for folks that don't know, or just for me, like how this even came to be. I know you talk a little bit about it in your new single Tricks, but how did it came to be?
Well, it's a bit of a silly beginning for Scott and I. Now, to give context, we were both in bands before. Scott actually was in a psychedelic rock band for 10 plus years, touring, doing the whole thing before he even met me. And I was a couple years into, I started country and then went into a rock and roll thing as well. And so we met because Scott was stalking me on Facebook a little bit, looking at my pictures online, hoping to arrange a meeting, and eventually got an invite to one of my solo shows, and had quite an interesting opening line. Now, I had gone to the bathroom and I came back and he was sitting in my seat. And I was like, "Excuse me, sir, I was sitting there." And he said, "Oh, it's okay. I was just leaving. I only came over here to steal some stuff out of your bag." So that was the first thing he ever said to me. And it was unique enough that
you got to be different.
Yeah,
yeah, got to say
certainly stood out.
It piqued my interest, and we kind of got to talking that night. And I had never really co-written with anyone, and he was like, "Well, if you're ever interested in co-writing." And a few days later, after we met, he sent me some piano chords and a first verse over Facebook Messenger. And I sent him some lyrics back for my verse. And a couple days later, we got together. And that was the first song we ever wrote, was called Bones, actually. Before we had the name Fox and Bones, we wrote a song called Bones. And yeah, ended up, pretty quickly in succession after that, finishing an EP and then our full first album within the first year of knowing each other. So
I'd been on the road with 5 or 6 piece band and staying 6 to a room in a hotel in all up and down California with our lovely drummer, always seeming to fall asleep first in the bed. So it was a lot of floor time, and I was like, we got to find We got to find a way to get off of the floor.
Yeah, Scott basically
we need
enlisted
an
me,
easier
and
touring.
he was like, "Scott was like, do you want to be in my band? We can have our own beds."
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, sounds great. I hadn't had that wealth of touring experience quite as much, especially not with a band. So it was a different context for me. But
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So you're in projects before. I mean, so how long have you individually kind of been at this as playing music, trying to make it happen?
It's been a few decades for me. I went to school at the University of Oregon. I used to walk around campus with an umbrella tied to a guitar and just play, Dave Matthews Band Crash over and over again until just hoping I'd lose my virginity or something.
just waiting for that
Please
moment.
crash into
Wait,
me.
yeah, I was going to say, wait for somebody to cry.
Literally crash into me.
Like, why is that guy
Crash
crying
into these
so
nuts.
much? So
Yeah.
I've been at it for a while. It's been a slow burn, I'd say, but I think the big figuring for all musicians who want to get out on the road, what worked for us is that we'd go out on the road for a month and then come back and work a job for 3 months, and then next time we'd go out for 2 months, and then come back and work a job for 2 months, and then on the road for 3 months. It was kind of building up warp speed velocity to get out and finally end up and break free of the grind of working at an after-school care in Portland, Oregon, playing basketball with elementary school kids.
Yeah, you didn't have it too bad.
No, I was doing fine.
Yeah, and for me, music has kind of been an interesting journey because I very much grew up with it. Did a lot of professional choir and solo ensemble competitions and all that stuff through high school, and then kind of abandoned it for a while because for me, I had kind of written songs in high school, but it just never occurred to me that was a viable option that I could do. And I ended up going on a backpacking trip in South America where I started writing music. And when I came home, I was just like, this is what I'm doing now. And so I had before I met Scott, I had a couple years of, producing my first record, which was a country album, and rebranding and wanting to be a rocker. And so I had a rock band, and we stayed mostly regional, playing Portland a lot and the outskirts of Portland. But I hadn't really had the touring experience. And so when I met Scott, he had all this experience touring, and we really piggybacked on a lot of his band's contacts. And that kind of helped us get started. The big thing, though, that propelled us in that first year was Scott had contact with a European booking agent for a while who had been wanting to get him over to Europe, but it didn't feel really feasible. He was looking for the right project Scott was looking for the right project to take to Europe. And so when we started, he gave Dominic our name and our first single, and he took us to Europe only 9 months after we started being a band. And so that was our first tour together, was actually over in Europe, which was pretty incredible way to start.
Wow, that is a hell of a first tour to start with, for sure.
Forged in the fire.
Yeah, truly.
Of Europe.
Yes, of Europe.
Yeah, the European fire. But yeah, it was intense and it was great. We went for 3 weeks and it kind of lit the fire under us to start booking our own tours around the U.S. as well.
That's incredible. So essentially you've been pretty road heavy every year you've been a band, from the jump.
Get, yeah.
I think that it is tough to put together a viable career in music. It takes a lot of what my friend Colby Hayden back home says, octopus income. So you got to have streams coming in from all different kind of areas. And so with music, you got to be touring, you got to be writing, you got to be putting music out, you got to be doing your ASCAP royalties, CD sales, your merch and everything. And so I think we just decided the only way it was going to work is if we just overworked.
Yeah, full send. Mm-hmm. Yeah, committing.
That was something we were discussing a little bit with our mutual friend Chrissy last night at the Evening Muse, was just kind of the realization that I don't think a lot of folks have about how bands make a living, make their money, keep it sustainable, and just how important it is to do the practical things like sharing the music, buying merch, all of that. I mean, can you guys speak to that a little bit about how you actually build this as a career, through the practical streams, like you're saying? Yeah,
absolutely. Merch on the road is such a big part of it, and that comes from the work before, because you have to get the shirts designed, you have to record the records, you have to print it, you have to duplicate the things, you have to have enough different items that, it sustains you, and also hit every price point. If someone has $5, like have something for sale for $5. If someone has 50, have something for sale for 50. And so like having merch on the road is one of the biggest things that actually, supports musicians these days, because streaming, you can get 100,000 streams and make $300 or whatever it is, but and that does help. It's a drop in the pail, but having yourself in all the different areas, like especially the performing rights organizations, like if you get paid for playing your songs on tour. So if you go to a venue and you play your songs, you can then report those to the performing rights organization, and then they pay you for playing your songs out at venues.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. So, there's a lot of behind the scenes things that people don't always realize. On the venue side, venues have to have a license with these PROs, and it's kind of expensive. And so that's one reason that if you see, like a brewery that used to have music and now they don't, or, there's a lot of people who just decide that the ASCAP license isn't worth it. And that's something that people don't really see. And then on our end, when we're on a tour like this, where we're headlining shows and having ticket sales, every venue is different. Some of the venues are taking a cut of that. Some of the venues, it's like we get paid after the first $100, which goes to the sound person. And so really merch is the only like guaranteed like take home pay that we take all of. And it really does help, in a show where we need to pay the venue $100 and we only sold 8 tickets and, didn't even make that 100, then that merch becomes the thing that goes directly into the gas tank. That's the thing that like propels us forward. And so, it's a good reminder that when you see your favorite artist coming through town, buy a ticket. Even if you're not sure you can go, just buy the ticket, because it really does help. And it's $12. And, if you get to go, then great. But buying a ticket is great. And then, because that actually helps. If you want an artist to come back to your town, that's how we get back here, is if we sold tickets. That's the main thing that venues are looking for booking artists, is whether they can sell tickets. And so, it really does help. I think we've seen this trend since the pandemic, and we've talked to a lot of different other, like festivals and venues and artists who are having the same issue right now, that since the pandemic, people are like hesitant to plan ahead for anything. And so people are, waiting till the day of to buy tickets. They're buying tickets at the door. I don't know if it's nice to they just want to see what their other options are, see if they get a better offer or whatever the thing is. I'm not totally sure, but it does seem like something that's changed. And so for anyone listening who is a music fan, one of the best things you can do is just plan ahead and buy the ticket. It really does help. It helps the venue. It helps the artist. It helps all of the things.
One thing I'll do important that I like a lot is if there's an artist coming to town, I'll buy 2 tickets so that I can invite a friend, and then I'll get super nervous and I just won't invite anyone and I'll go by myself and just have 2 tickets. I'm like, oh.
Well, and that's a great thing, that Scott talks about with this, because he goes to a lot of concerts back home, and for somebody like him who's a little bit more introverted and it takes a lot of energy to be social, buying a ticket ahead of time forces him to go. Because like if we wait till the last minute, sometimes you'll be like, I don't feel like it tonight. And if you don't have a ticket, you don't feel obligated to go.
If I have those 2 tickets, I'll just go. I'll be me lurking alone in the background, watch a band with a hoodie on, just peeking out through the little slats in the hoodie. So I don't know, introverts can enjoy things too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, you gotta
hide in the corner.
You gotta hold yourself accountable to going by buying a ticket ahead of time. But yeah.
I love it. That's super. I didn't realize that even about like the performing rights organizations, and that's super, I think, practical and helpful advice for fans of music, and just insight into what it takes to be a musician and do this as a career, because it is a grind every single day, and you have to have all these different streams, and you're producing content, and you're like selling merch and doing ticket sales and everything you guys mentioned. So I really do hope people take that to heart of like how you can support your favorite artists, because I do think that's a underrated aspect of, for me, I took things less and less for granted over time, part of just like natural age and maturity, but also specifically when it came to music, all of us kind of going through the pandemic and that aspect of it, to whatever, I don't think I ever really took music or local artists or things like that for granted. And I feel like I've always tried to have a mindset to support friends and support people that are doing that type of stuff. But to whatever degree I had that mindset, the pandemic and going through that experience accelerated that, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, live music doesn't exist at the moment. And So I was like, I'm never taking that for granted again. And
Totally.
so I just think having a mindset to be able to like really practically support and do part of the work as a fan to make sure your favorite artists are able to keep going is super huge.
Absolutely. Well, and you come from a music background. We were talking about that last night, being in a band. So, you know, you have that extra knowledge of what it takes to be on the road.
I am slightly more empathetic maybe than the average concert goer.
Which, yeah, we definitely appreciate.
But that's why I like having guys like you on the show and stuff like that, and just trying to spread the gospel of bands and friends and people that are creating as much as possible, because it really is this like symbiotic relationship between you and the fans, and you can't exist in a vacuum. You know, Fox and Bones doesn't exist without the support of people coming to shows and sharing on Instagram and buying vinyl and all that kind of stuff.
Sharing their beds.
Sharing their beds, yeah.
So, and it's cool that you guys are still, I think it's great that any artist is still able to sustain themselves, especially kind of going through that 1 or 2 year period of just like, is this even going to be a thing again?
Yeah.
And we saw a lot of bands choose different careers in that point, but the ones who stuck to it and figured out a way to keep on creating kind of have been the beneficiary of that time. I think it was a difficult time for everyone, but not to overuse it, but we are once again forged in the fire.
I was just going to say that. I was like, we already said that once.
Every time you say that, I keep thinking of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yes.
Like, I just see the
Forged in the fire. Scott has been listening to a lot of podcasts about the upcoming House of the Dragon, so maybe that's where this is coming from.
Listen to one. Don't have me as a nerd.
Are a nerd.
Well, you're in good company because I'm a big nerd too, and I'm super excited for House of the Dragon.
You're
season
outnumbered,
2.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Watch your mouth.
Sorry, yeah, we got cool Sarah here, and then we got us 2 nerds that she's gracing with her presence.
Weird in a different way.
She's killed.
I've killed people. That's kind of weird.
Finally
That's kind of weird
to say
and quirky, right? It's
of course.
like fun and weird and quirky. Yeah.
Being the subject of a true crime podcast is a weird quirk, right?
This is a gotcha podcast. It's actually true crime. We finally got you to admit it. Yeah.
We got here. The investigation worked.
Police come in.
We spent all this time. You set up a band for 8 years. You're like, oh,
I can't believe they finally caught me. I
Played
got
the-
on the move all this time.
played the long game. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't use the word remiss. That's like one of my favorite words to use, like for some reason all the time. But no, I want to talk about like your songs and the music and stuff, and like dig into that a little bit, because I don't want to fanboy too hard on my own podcast, but I absolutely love your music. I was joking around with Sarah last night. I was like, I wouldn't ask you guys to be on the podcast if I thought you sucked or if I didn't enjoy the music. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not that nice. I still
appreciate that.
I still try to have taste and like, you know, the finer things in life, you know.
Yeah.
But I swear to you, I woke up this morning and I just could not get House by the River out of my head. That's such an earworm of a song. And we alluded to it earlier of, you know, your extensive being on the road, touring, all that stuff. So I don't want to, you know, spoil any part of the song or talk about it for you. So I'll just lay out, if you guys want to talk about, you know, that single in particular, the role it plays in your new album, what it's about, that kind of stuff.
I think first off, we'd love to credit Greg Holden, who we have been working with on this new record. He has been our therapist and our producer and our inspiration for this whole new direction that we've been going in. And we went to his house studio to record most of these songs, and we'd sit down with nothing. And throughout the course of the day, between him plinking around on the computer and the guitar and us writing lyrics, and then him telling us to rewrite those lyrics better, throughout the whole process, we ended up with I think one of our favorite albums that we've done to date. And so just want to credit Greg Holden for being that guide. He told us he was going to push us to work through all of our issues, and I think we've at least begun to.
We've begun to, for sure. Well, and this song is the first song that we wrote with Greg. And so it was our first experience. We had kind of gone to his studio a couple times, and we'd brought songs in that we wanted to put on the album. So a couple of the songs were pre-written. But he could tell we were dancing around actually sitting down and writing. And we were telling him about what we wanted to do, and he's playing this riff over and over. And he was like, I'm going to keep playing this until you guys listen to it and decide to use it. Yeah. He was like, you guys can keep talking as long as you want, but I'm going to get this riff in your head. And it was the opening riff to House by the River. And so finally we're like, okay, we had to get all of our chatty, like nervous energy out. And finally we're like, okay, I think we need to write a song. And so the way that things kind of came together as we were working with Greg was that, we went into the studio every day with a goal of writing a song from scratch. We didn't necessarily have, maybe we had a concept, maybe we didn't. Sometimes it started with a lyric that turned into a concept or a riff that turned into a concept. And for this one, I feel like we just kind of started writing lines and it turned into what it was, which we realized it's kind of funny how a song starts to like write itself in a way. And then you realize it's something you really wanted to say that you didn't even know you wanted to write about. And so for this song and for a lot of our songs in the past, our music is very optimistic. And that's because we use music as a tool to manifest what we want to see in our lives and in the world. And we did that with our first album where we kind of manifested like touring and going on this big adventure of being a band together. And with this song, we decided to bring that back of like, what's the thing we really want now? Well, we'd really like to have a home base. We want to live out in the woods and have a big piece of land where all of our friends can put houses on it and we can, have this like communal feel, create together, really just have a place to call our own. And that's been a dream, for a long time. And so this song we were like, how do we put that into words and how do we put that into a soundscape? And what resulted, I feel like people resonate with this song so much because even if you don't understand what it's like to be a musician, there is a nostalgia about it of like coming home. And I think everyone understands that feeling of having somewhere to call your own, having somewhere to come home to. And we've really captured so many people's like hearts with this song somehow. And also we have fans everywhere now that are like, I have a house by the river. You can come stay here anytime. And so in a way we've like already started manifesting. We have these houses by rivers all over the country that we can stay at. And it's like the step, the next step in our own manifestation journey of like finding our house by the river. So do you have anything to add?
No, that's wonderful.
You just went somewhere else there for a second.
I'm here, y'all.
He's like, oh.
I empathize with that a little bit. I'm useless without my coffee, and I'm only like halfway through it. So. That's a beautiful explanation, and I think it perfectly encapsulates why I resonate with the song a lot because I have done a lot of traveling in my life, not nearly as much as you guys, it sounds like, but I've done lots of road trips, been on, some tours, playing shows. My wife and I in 2019, we did like a 35-day road trip for her to do a photo shoot out in Washington. And we just made a whole big thing of it. But just that, like when you're creating stuff, when you're somebody that likes to connect with lots of people, I've heard friends term it before, like when you're on the road, especially in a band, you have those like single serving relationships. Or you're doing anything creative. Like I just started doing stand-up comedy, like anything where you're performing, connecting with an audience, any of that kind of stuff. It's like you'll see people and you'll be like, oh, great. But then you may like literally never see them again in spite of connecting so well. So
totally,
that song has really resonated with me a lot, I think, because part of the reason that I love the fact that I have Megan and we have our dog Stella and we have our first child coming this year, which is crazy.
Congrats.
So exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, girl dad. But part of why I love that so much and why my heart yearns for those things is like you yearn to have some kind of stability or some kind of like connectedness that isn't going to change the next night or just kind of like go away.
Totally.
So I think like you said, it speaks to whether you're somebody that can relate to the performing arts and creating and being on the road or not. I think all of us on a human level kind of yearn for that like heart connection and stability and just like having our people and our place to exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so much of touring, if maybe not just life in general, is organized chaos in a way. There's so much going on at all times, and there's so much information, especially in these modern days. There's so much information coming in, and so many things happening all over the world, and we have access to all this information at all times from all places all over the world. And so this desire to simplify, I think, is something that we're drawn to. Is like, how do we take this such a dearth of information and put it into something that can be understood or at least calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think the house by the river analogy is so important. Like you didn't just say we want a house or we want
Totally.
It's like that reconnection to nature even is super important.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I think, just being in a place that's quiet and hearing the birds. We stayed a couple extra days in Ohio or I guguess before our Columbus show, because we had a couple days between Cleveland and Columbus. And we have a friend who's a booking agent, and he lives out in the middle of nowhere, in the sticks by Dayton. And
shout out Black Oak.
Yeah, Black Oak artists.
I'm an Ohio boy, so this is music to my ears.
Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. I mean, it was just, they live in this kind of almost log cabin looking house, and it was so cozy. And I just was standing outside, and you could just hear the birds and nothing else. And I was like, this is really nice, because a lot of times I love the city. Literally the next day we were in New York City, which is one of my favorite places on earth. And I kind of like thrive in the chaos there, but it is a little exhausting, and so to just be in a place that's completely quiet, I think is a good reset for not just musicians that are on the road, but I think for all of us. Like, there's so much going on at all times. And I think to just like be able to sit in nature for a second and take it in is a great way to like counterbalance all of the insanity of our world.
Oh, 100%. I mean, to both your points, it's like all my work is technology based, I feel like, or, spending all this time on social media, all this stuff, that anytime I get a respite to actually like reconnect in a way that has nothing to do with the modern stimulation, as you put it in the song, it's like, it's very life-giving.
Definitely. And I've been finding, especially like, on tour, we have long drives in the car. And if I'm not driving, I'll find myself scrolling for hours. And I've been starting to like log, in my mind and in my journal, like how the more time I spend on social media, the worse my mental health is. Like the more defeated I feel, the more I feel like not good enough, the more I get stressed that like things aren't going well. And when I like remove myself from it and I just am in the experience of what we're doing, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is awesome, and it's crazy how quickly that sense of peace and, trust in the universe and trust in the process declines when you're just constant scrolling and seeing what everyone else is doing. For me, like when we get off this tour, I'll probably take a little bit of a social media detox because, when we're on tour, we kind of need to be on it. But I think it's been really good for me to like remind myself that some of this like inner monologue that isn't nice is coming from these external things.
With Sarah off social media, that means our Instagram's about to get real weird.
Yeah, every time I take a break, Scott takes over. And
baby.
Do I have this right that you do the Instagram and you do the Twitter?
Primarily? I do Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, Scott does Twitter, and Scott's been more on the Facebook too, but you've been doing Instagram a little bit here and there, depending on who's driving and who's...
I always have to keep that in mind whenever I'm interacting with you guys on either platform. I have to, like, all right, Instagram, Sarah. All right, now I'm interacting with Scott over here on Twitter.
Totally.
But, zoom out from that. It's, everything you're saying about the song and about the detox and the mental health, 100% can relate to that. And I think it is important to, like, be self-aware of how those things, like, have an effect, because we really are all guinea pigs, like, as a human generation for going through all this stuff for the first time.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, I think you're around the same age as us, like, and we obviously didn't grow up with it. Like, we got it kind of late in high school. And I'm so grateful for that, because even as like a fully formed adult, it has not always been a positive experience for me. And I can't even imagine like in my formative years. How does that feel now I'm interviewing you. How does that feel for you though? Like with a kid coming into the world, do you feel like I'm nervous about that?
100%. Yes. The internet is a very scary place, but also just like, even before like having a kid, I felt that way, like this, and on my own mental health, all that stuff. But I'm 100% team, like, no social media till you're like 16 or whatever. Yeah. like that. I recognize the benefits of it, but for the unformed brain, like you said, it can be even more dangerous.
Definitely.
Well, I want to talk about the album. So you have the new album, Long Time Honey. Again, I just want to open the floor. Maybe some of your other favorite tracks from the album, how the album came together as a whole, like what kind of the vision behind it was, what the statement of it is, like anything you want to share is like your artist statement about the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely came together. There was a little bit of a time crunch because our producer Greg Holden was having a baby in August, and so we had like 3 months. Like, all right, once this baby drops, it's going to be tough to schedule. It's going to be tough it'll be tough to continue recording. So we had a very clear deadline that we hit with the album, which was nice, and that kind of focused our attention because we knew exactly what we needed to do, and it helped inform our decisions on how to record and what songs we wanted to include on it. As far as the general energy of it, I think it's a collection of songs about perseverance, about not giving up. The big part of this tour has been, it's very tough to defeat someone who doesn't give up because they keep coming back. And so we felt that throughout our career. One of our saving graces that we're just going to keep working and keep dedicating ourselves to this career. And so I think the record reflects that. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, it's just interesting because, like I said, we didn't really we went into like, we knew we were writing an album, but we didn't have a plan for it. We had a couple tracks that we had written that Greg helped us hone, but like 8 of the 10 tracks were written in studio from scratch. And so it's so interesting to me how a creative project can blossom without a vision or a plan, like it's like almost what needed to come out is what came out. And it was a cohesive thing on its own, just by nature of maybe where we've been in our lives and what we wanted to say. But, it was so fun to see each day have, and even the songs that are like a little bit less about career and they feel more personal still kind of reflect that, like not giving up. There's a song on the album that's one that I kind of wrote with Greg alone because I had some stuff I needed to process without Scott there. And so Greg made Scott go in the other room.
I was asked to leave the room. I was like, you've got to scram.
Like,
I was like, scram. Okay, go eat a burrito in the other room. I was like, all right.
So the burrito song, Scott's burrito song, is called Over the Edge. And, for me, I was processing something entirely different that had nothing to do with music, but it still is the same thing of like figuring out how to bounce back from heartbreak, and especially when you've kind of had a similar heartbreak over and over and you've had, you feel like you've done all this work and something's still not happening. And I think that is one of the less happy songs on the album. It's a little bit more rough, like a little bit more dark, at least for us. But, I think it's an important piece of that puzzle because a lot of the songs are heartfelt but have an optimistic outcome. And I think it's important to include the fact that sometimes it is just hard and you kind of get down on yourself. That song is maybe about something more personal, but it really is also about our music career. Because I get really in my head about, I hate to say it, but I think I'm a little bit more of a pessimist in general in life. And so I kind of see things through, which thankfully Scott's an optimist. And so we balance each other. But, I see things through the lens of what I'm not doing right and what I need to do better and what I need to fix and what I need to change. And so that song was really about like, I feel like I've done all this work and I'm still coming back to feeling this way. And I sometimes feel that way with music where it's like, we've done all this stuff and we're still, playing to only 10 people in the room. And I get in my head about what that means about me as a person and the ways that I've failed. And so, the album really just it's kind of a journey of that. It's all the different pieces. There's also, one of our other favorites is it's called The Best That You Can, and it's about when things are hard, just doing the best that you can, and like knowing that things aren't always gonna go the way you think they will, but as long as you bring your best to each situation, that might look different every day. Don't Do Nothing is one that's already out, and that's kind of about like celebrating the little wins and meeting your goals halfway. Like Scott always says, like uses the analogy of like, if your dreams are always coming towards you, but if you meet them halfway, you'll find them quicker. Things will happen quicker. And so all the songs, each song has like a different piece in this journey of like what it's like to follow a dream, be disappointed by a dream, be inspired by a dream again, go on the ride of having it be a little bit of everything. And at the end of the day, persevering and choosing to commit and keep doing it and not give up.
Do you feel like, because all the things you're sharing about the album and the songs and their concepts and the things you're working through, it's all very like, because we're all in like roughly our mid-30s, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like there's so much life experience and heart in your music currently and in these songs? Do you feel like you could have written the same songs like 10 years ago?
No,
I don't think so. I think it takes some people get to where they are quicker. So, some people hit the ground running, others take a lifetime to crawl. So I think some things season well with just, you got to season them up a little bit. And so, I think for me personally, I know the songs that I was writing 10 years ago, they had a similar heart, but maybe less cohesion, a little bit more Pink Floydian, just like wacky lyrics combinations. And I think something that has come with Sarah and I working together is finding a balance between ethereal lyrics that maybe don't always make sense, but then also having them combine with a way to convey information. And so it's this balance of almost like the John Lennon keep it simple, stupid type of thing, where it's like, let's get this, let's find a way to make these ideas that we're grappling with out in the world constantly on the road and that we're working on. How do we then express what we have both learned and also what maybe we haven't learned in the simplest way possible? How do you transfer information? And I think music is a beautiful way to do that because it puts people at ease. Most genres put people at ease and make it easier to transfer information, transfer things that you've learned throughout your life.
Definitely. Throughout your life. Well, and Greg was instrumental in, because Scott and I are very different writers. I'm a little bit more, I come from more of like a pop country almost background. And so I kind of tend to go straight to the point of things and talk about the feeling of things a lot. And Scott was more from like a psychedelic rock background. So he's finding like really interesting and intricate ways to say things that like, I have multiple times been like, what does this mean, Scott? And he usually knows, like he does, It does come from somewhere. He's not just like throwing random words down.
I used to.
But it's almost, well, you have done that
now
too.
Now that I know I'm getting fact checked, I'm like, I got to know
because he knows
what
I'll
I'm
ask.
saying.
I'm like, I'm dumb. Tell me what this means. I just did it with a song of ours the other day. I'm like, we've been singing this song every night, and I actually don't know what a couple of these lyrics mean. And he did have, he's finding the most sometimes complicated, but just like these crazy words and big words, and it sounds so beautiful. But, we've kind of, our combination is that, and Greg really helped us with this too, because Greg is a pop writer through and through. I mean, that's what he's done for a long time. And so he was able to really, he's like, how do we make this accessible for everyone? How do we make this interesting while still being, like accessible? Yeah, understandable.
The lyric that you'd asked about was immersed in wraith, if just to memorize a shade of concentrated meaning that we've found. The idea of that, it's a mouthful, it's a little bit of word salad, but the meaning of it is, you go into these dark emotional places, you go into that, the places that you're afraid of, the emotional, the emotional spots that you're afraid of, and you glean information from that to be able to then share that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I asked too, because there's, and what you're sharing about the recording process, how this album even came together, there's a little bit of like a left brain, right brain thing happening where this is obviously like a deep, creative, emotional, heartfelt, you're pouring your soul into these songs, all that kind of stuff, but you have a timetable and it's work and you have to get up and produce. And I feel like both the word that kept coming to mind as you were sharing about the album and your songs was like grounded, and everything just seems more like grounded in the art that you're creating. Granted, I haven't been with you this whole journey, so I can't speak to, before this album, and we've listened to like some of your previous work and have enjoyed it, but everything you're sharing about this process and these songs that I've really spent a lot of time consuming, like it feels like there's a lot of emotional and mental self-awareness in them, a lot of creativity, a lot of fun, a lot of like, they just feel like a good mix of things, but ultimately kind of feel grounded in that, just as like an outside observer, was that a fair assessment? Definitely.
Yeah. And I think, thinking about our last 3 records and the themes of each of them, the first one was a concept album about characters named Fox and Bones, which is kind of where we got the name from. It was this kind of Bonnie and Clyde story where these 2 down and out characters, they meet and they decide to leave it all behind and just go out on the road in search of a better life. And, that ended up being kind of what we did. And so it was a fictional story that turned true. But again, it was outside of ourselves. And then Better Land was like all songs about being on the road and what it felt like being on the road for the first time and actually being on that adventure that we had created in the first album. The third album is a lot about, we were writing it during like 2020, 2021. And so it's a lot about like bigger universal concepts, things that are going on in the world, things that we want to see, that we want to call in the world as a whole. And again, we're looking outside. We're viewing the world and saying, this is what we want to see. And then with this album, it does feel like, just the same way with House by the River, it feels like coming home to like our experience and our, like, looking back on the 8 years and being like, this is what we've been feeling internally. And this is the reality of our experience over the last 8 years while we were writing all these more outside of ourselves concepts, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I love how you describe the arc of those albums. And even if it's a bit like in retrospect, like maybe that wasn't the intended arc at the time, but it's cool to like look back and see how it's evolved. And that makes it really exciting to think about where you'll even keep evolving, because we're all still in process, and you're still in process as artists and people and musicians. And so that's kind of the part of this that I love about just creating things and collaborating with other people, is it makes you feel really alive, and there's like an organic element to it, and it becomes its own living thing. Like I'm sitting here talking to you about how I conceptualize your work, but it's like came from you, it's your work, and it just takes on a life of its own. So, and
that's what's so cool about it, is when, we almost start to understand meaning of things as people say them back to us, and I think that's a really interesting thing, is that when other people interpret your art, you're like, yeah, no, actually you're right. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. But, I think that's what's beautiful about art, is it's so open to interpretation. And I think a lot of times when an artist is putting out art, they don't even know the half of what they're doing with that. It's almost like it's channeled, and we just do it, and we just go through the motions. And then later we're like, I still find deeper meaning in stuff that I wrote a long time ago without realizing it.
Well, the best kind of art is one that you can keep coming back to and keep finding that meaning. Like art that is really static is, rarely has like a long shelf life, and art that feels just more dynamic and lived in always has a much longer shelf life.
Totally.
That's the goal with this podcast and these conversations, is that you could listen to it a year from now and be like, oh, I feel like you're right there and it's dynamic. And that's the goal with the music you're creating. Like, and I think that's what makes projects sustainable and people get into them over time, because there's so much, as we were talking about earlier, there's so much out there for all of us to consume with content and information. And we're all, every content market, music, podcasting, otherwise, is so saturated, and all these artists, which on the one hand, it's great that the barrier to entry is like easier than ever in some ways for anyone wanting to create. I think that's a positive thing. But on the other side, it can feel saturated. But I think great art, I think what's been true regardless of the medium, is great art continues to like rise above. Not in every case, of course. There's some artists that never get their proper due, but I think most of the time it kind of, rises to the top. Sorry, yeah.
Well, I've always felt too, the journey is the destination with it. The creation of it is the whole meaning of it. And so making the music and being able to play the music, we've already won. We've already succeeded, and it's a joy to be able to do it. And so I just feel lucky to be part of it.
That's a great summary of like previous conversations I've had with musicians on this, or any creative on this show. Is like sometimes just the art and the ability of getting to do it can be a reward in and of itself. Obviously, we want the external rewards too. Making a career, everything we were talking about earlier. But it's kind of a both. It's a both and a little bit.
Totally.
Well, we have unfortunately we're up against the clock, so we got about like 6 minutes left. But I wanted to get your quick take on the statement I made kind of in your intro. I described you as folk rock, but I feel like maybe you guys do transcend just kind of I feel like many artists probably do, but can you speak to yourself, like for yourselves, how you conceptualize your own genre, how you describe it to people, and some of your like musical influences within that?
Yeah.
We've been ending up on a lot of like happy indie folk type playlists, and I like that. Feels nice. I don't know how Sarah feels about that, but I like that.
I think and it's interesting because a lot of bands that we really like kind of also are hard to describe, and so we can often say in a production session like, these are the bands that we'd love to sound like. But when I actually think about trying to define those bands' genres, I also have a tough time. And I know that one thing that we come back to is we really love any sort of, like, we're both very inspired by like classic rock and like, 60s and 70s singer-songwriters. And so there's always this element of retro, and the bands that we like that are current have a little bit of a retro edge. This album very much has like an 80s, like Bruce Springsteen thing to it, which has been fun. And So I think that if there's anything that can categorize us, for sure, it's this kind of like modern retro thing. But sometimes it's pop, sometimes it's folk, sometimes it's rock, sometimes it's indie. It's all, if you listen to Tricks and then you listen to House by the River, they really couldn't be more different. And so it is hard, I think. And maybe that's just why the pop genre came out, because it was just like, it's more of a songwriting structure than it is a sound. And the sound is always changing. And so, yeah, we just have so many influences and draw from so many different places that it kind of naturally becomes hard to define.
Yeah, I like that though, because when I was in a band, people would always ask us, describe your music or what genre. I think you even asked me last night, like, oh, what genre were you guys? And like back, because it was through high school and college, and so in a little bit the immaturity, it'd be like, we defy all the genres. We're a little bit of Dave Matthews, a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers, a little bit of John Coltrane. It's like, all right,
it's jazz, baby.
Yeah, pick a little. No, but I think you described that beautifully, how that works and how that works in relation to you guys. I kind of asked this of all my guests, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like, what's like one piece of advice or encouragement, for anybody that's listening that is a musician or aspiring or whatever, that you would give from all your years of experience?
Yeah, just keep trying, one step at a time. I think it's easy to look at things on a grand scale and expect that you have to do everything at once, but really like a large journey is started by a single step. So just keep trying, do the little things every day, and know where you want to end up. And if you have that goal of the place that you want to be in mind, then just keep taking those baby steps towards it, and you'll get there. Like,
I think too, figuring out how to find acceptance and peace in the idea of paying your dues, and like that sounds like kind of an elitist way to say that, but I'm kind of saying what Scott's saying in the sense that like when I released my first album, I thought that it should top the country charts, and now I look back, I'm like, oh, thank God that wasn't the album that got me famous or was an overnight success. Like the music keeps getting better and better, and our career, the payouts and the shows and the venues we get to play and the festivals, like that all comes from putting in the work over time and committing to getting better with each album and with each song. And so I think, if anyone that's just starting out, it's just, it's okay if your song doesn't go viral, but keep doing it anyway. Go play in every place that will let you play, whether it's paid or not, and just cut your teeth in any way you can. You eventually will earn the right to, get those bigger payouts, to play the big festivals. Like all of that comes with time, as long as you just commit to doing it and not having an ego about, oh, well, I don't want to play there because it's not prestigious enough. It's like, it's okay. We played in every type of possible place that you could imagine, and it was worth it because every night we got better at our craft. And, I wouldn't have wanted to play the Evening Muse for an almost sold out crowd 8 years ago with barely having toured at all. I'm happy for I'm happy for the journey. I'm happy that we are now so comfortable on stage that we can play anywhere. And so I think that's what I always tell people. I'm like, just get started and say yes to everything and commit to, just doing it over and over.
Solid advice from both of you. And I love how it ties into the themes we've been talking about with your music and your own journey of like perseverance and taking those steps. I'm a big What About Bob fan, so I love the baby steps. Love the baby steps.
Dr. Leo Marvin.
Yeah. I mean, it's like ridiculous in that movie, but it's so true. I think about it, especially like any big life thing that feels overwhelming. I'm like, all right, baby steps. Like baby steps to the door.
One thing you can do. Yeah, exactly.
And doing what you can, and also that perseverance. These are all things that I wish I would have thought more about as a like young budding musician. And that's why I asked about the music you would have written 10 years ago and stuff too. I think a lot of that comes with time. And that's why I love hearing you share that and talk about that, because that's the kind of advice that may seem very simplistic, but is actually very deep and very grounded and like helps you achieve the success you're looking for when you're able to kind of just like focus in, take those steps, have the perseverance, kind of minimize the ego a little bit of where you think you should be versus where you are. I heard somebody put it one time of like, the ground between reality and expectations is fertile ground for frustration. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, how do you be mindful, kind of be present in your day-to-day? What is your reality versus like the expectations you have for what it should be, and just taking those steps. So I feel like that's all solid advice. And another piece of advice, just be as talented as Fox and Bones. That's, yeah.
But we didn't start this talented. That's an important thing to know.
That's fair.
Friends, family
Talent
can attest
is built.
to that.
Yeah, talent is definitely something I think that's built over time. And
Yeah, as you're fine-tuning your craft.
exactly.
In the shows, writing the songs. This is I can't thank you guys enough for coming in. This has been incredible.
So awesome. Thanks for
having us.
It's been a long time, honey, but we finally.
Feels like we're getting there. We're here. We've got here.
Am I allowed to use that?
Yes, absolutely. TM.
Yeah. Did you just TM your? What's that from? I feel like that's a quote. I'll think of it later. Whatever. It's not. It's not important. That's from like The Office or something like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah, probably.
Like just saying TM. All right. My OCD brain is like bugging out on that now. Like, where's that?
You're like, I gotta know.
All right. Well, speaking of finding things and figuring things out, where can people find you guys? Where can they follow you? What the typical socials? Where can they listen to music? All that good stuff.
We are on the internet everywhere at Fox and Bones. That's .com, .facebook, .instagram. Do you want to follow us in person? I have a black Toyota RAV4 that is currently driving all over the country.
Yeah,
Nobody's
but also
ever given that. That's
so
incredible.
many people have that car, so good luck finding ours. It does have Oregon
I'll
plates.
start with the license plate. It's 2 O's.
I love so much that you threw that in there. It's like if you want to actually follow
Yeah,
me.
you can just follow us around.
If you want to do what I did to Sarah and just like
Scott is pro stalking.
Game recognized game, though. I'll spot you.
Yeah, Scott will know. All of the sites, foxandbones.com/shows is where we're going to be playing coming up, and we're on all the music sites as well. So if you search Fox and Bones, you'll pretty much find us. We exist on the internet.
Follow some bands in town, too. That's where all of our shows and how we're reaching out to a lot of people. Just with modern streaming sites are kind of are cutting out your ability to reach your audience. So I think Bands in Town is the best one for keeping track of bands as they're coming through town.
Bands, and then also our mailing list, which is on our website, you can sign up for, and that's a direct way to get communication from us.
Oh, you'll be proud of me. I did remember where that reference was from. Do you guys watch The Office?
Yep.
Yes.
So it was season 7, episode 22. Because I'm a giant nerd. You have no idea
incredible.
the depths of my nerdiness.
Wow.
But it was when they were finding a new manager after Steve Carell left, and they had like this slew of guest stars come in to like interview for the manager job. And Will Arnett came in as like one of the interviewees, and he was like, "I have a plan to increase your sales. I have the greatest plan." And they're like, "Well, tell us the plan." He's like, "I'm not just going to give you the plan. You have to give me the job, and I'll give you the plan." And they're like, "Well, can you give us a part of the plan?" And he's like, "I'll give you section 1 of part 3." And he's like, color code said documents, TM. And he like trademarked his own plan. So
There we go.
that's where that's from. But most importantly,
I'm impressed with that recall. That was crazy.
I do have kind of a like ridiculous memory of stuff. So
It's amazing.
yeah. So forget my Office references. Go follow Fox and Bones. What are we talking about, people? This is what you get on a Sunday morning after a show.
Totally.
3/4 through the coffee. I'm so excited to have you guys in. foxandbones.com, Fox and Bones on social media, Spotify, Bands in Town. Just to reiterate everything you guys said. And I have very, very extensive show notes. So we're going to have links. We're going to have social media handles. We're going to link it up when we post about it. It's going to be great. So go follow Fox and Bones. Check them out. Thank you guys again just so much for coming in here, having this conversation. I really do say this about all my conversations, but I'm excited to listen back and like really be able to soak in a lot of the stuff you guys are sharing. And I'll just say on a personal level, as a fan of your music, truly, it was cool to be able to hear you talk about all these different things, because it kind of like paints it in Technicolor more so. Like it's like you see a painting, but then you read the artist statement and you're like, oh, like it just brings it to life more. And you've done that for me today.
Thanks for having us. It's
Yeah,
been a
this has
pleasure.
been a wonderful, wonderful time. So thank you.